Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Mike Russo, Anthony LaPanta. Our next live show is, Anthony, July 28th at Tuttle's. And this just
Monday
in.
Night.
This one, yep. This put this on your calendar.
I have Monday night.
And this just in, August 13th at Elsie's. So August 13th at Elsie's, July 28th at Tuttle's. Probably the most entertaining part of the show, if you're listening, would have been the 20 minutes before the show when we were all deciding what the heck we were going to talk about. Because there is nothing to talk about. Even the Twitter questions I got, I'm just like, we've answered this 1,000 times. Every one of the questions, like even the fans are just like, have nothing to ask anymore, Anthony.
They have it's the same questions because we're in the same spot.
Yeah.
Marco Rossi's still unsigned, but a member of the organization. Kirill Kaprizov still unsigned, but a member of the organization.
Signed, but unextended.
Right, but that's it.
Yep. Let's talk about you first.
Boy, right. That sounds exciting.
Yeah. So we've talked on this show before about how 5 or 6 years ago we're at the Mall of America. Actually, let's fast track back. Let's go, backtrack a little more. At AJ's graduation, we go up to St. John's, and he realizes that he doesn't have his shirt, he doesn't have a tie, all this stuff. I since learned that at Gianni's wedding, the same thing happened to you, where you just show up without your suit. And then the other thing that we've talked about is that 5 or 6 years ago, Mall of America, I'm going down an escalator, and I go to AJ, what happened to your ear? And he's like, nothing. What are you talking about? I'm like, well, there's a pool of blood in your ear that's dried, and he had no idea where it happened. And apparently this happened to you the other day. So you, again, Anthony and Anthony Jr. are like legitimately doppelgangers in every single way.
Okay, well, number one, I take that as a compliment because I think AJ is a pretty solid guy, so I'd love to be compared to him.
Just a little absent-minded.
Right. So, but let's start with the suit part. It actually, I was probably, I'd say, more responsible than I normally would be. I put my suit in the car the night before because we were leaving early to go play golf the morning of the rehearsal dinner. Uh-huh. So I didn't want to leave anything to chance the morning of, and I put my suit, tie, everything in Margot's car. Perfect. It's done the night before. Well, then Gianni decided she was going to load up the car with other stuff and just thought the suit was in there by accident, so moved it so that she could get her stuff into the car. And what's the worst part about it is that I didn't even realize it until pretty late in the night on Friday night. The wedding was on Saturday, where it's like, wait a minute, where's my suit bag? And we find out that it was, Gianni said, I moved that so I could get stuff loaded up in the car. So we had to try to make some arrangements to have somebody else pick it up at my house to bring it up to St. Cloud. It all worked.
And then I heard Vinny lost a bunch of stuff.
Well, Vinny
forgot a bunch of stuff.
He did. That was a little bit of a car shuffle that was mildly unpredictable. I had stuff in the trunk for Vinny, a belt, a tie, I can't remember, there was one of the shoes, I think. And we ended up taking a different car from St. Cloud out to St. John's for the wedding. And when the car arrived, and I thought I had taken everything out of the trunk that anybody could possibly need. And then we got out there and Vinny's like, wait, I don't have a tie. So we had to send Landon, Ariana's boyfriend, back to the hotel area to get to my car to get the tie out of the trunk. And it was before the wedding, but there were a bunch of pictures and stuff that were supposed to happen. So it was every picture that didn't include Vinny, let's get those done first because Vinny doesn't have a tie. And it added a little to the stories of the wedding. The bloody ear thing is legit. I have no idea what happened. I went out and played golf on one day this weekend. I don't remember what day it was. And I convinced Margot to come and walk the back nine with me. I was playing by myself. Said, come and walk the back nine with me, and then we'll go grab some dinner. She comes at the turn at Loggers Trail, and all of a sudden she looks and said, what happened to your ear? I'm like, I have no idea. I can't see my ear. She took a picture of it and showed it to me, and yes, I had like a bunch of scabbed blood in my ear. I have no idea what happened. I don't know.
Is what happened to AJ. So clearly you two just bleed from the ear.
Apparently.
Were you in the North Loop a couple days ago, by the way? Just walking around?
No.
Okay.
Oh,
Not yesterday?
Wait, yesterday I did go down and
Yeah,
walk.
yeah.
I was walking down by the river, not in North Loop, though. I was on the
that's
other
what it
side of
was.
the
So
river.
Dane Mizutani was out for a run, and all of a sudden he called me, and he's like, "Hey, you guys back in the country?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, because I thought I just saw Anthony walking around the North Loop." So.
Yeah, I wasn't in North Loop. I was on the other side of the river.
Okay.
But I was walking along the river.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
So he ran by me?
Yeah, apparently.
Why wouldn't you say hello?
I don't know. I don't know what happened. He decided instead of saying hello to call me to see if it was you. So I was in another world when he called me. All right, let's talk about the Wild. All right, we're 6 minutes in, so we gotta really work to get this podcast.
Well, we could talk more about my walk along the river. I don't know how exciting that was, but
yeah, there's not a lot to talk about, people. All right, let's talk about Kirill Kaprizov and Marco Rossi, because these are topics that we haven't talked about the last year and a half. I did a daily face-off rundown the other day, and as usual, everything is aggregated and nobody listens to the full context. But if you're a Wild fan freaking out about the stuff that I said, just listen to the full interview, and I think you'll be a little less freaked out. At never any point do I try to intimate or indicate. In fact, it's the complete opposite, that Kirill Kaprizov isn't going to sign his extension here. I just said essentially that they're not close. Not that they have a difference in opinion on money and things like that. It's just that the deal is not close to being signed. I think they've taken a bit of a break here, and at this point, because it's not done, I think we all would have wanted it to get done as early as July 1 or soon after. I think because it's not done, I think that Bill Guerin at when Kirill gets back into town next month is probably going to want to sit down with him and just make sure that everything is discussed, from the plan to the contract structure to everything, and just make sure that everything that is being conveyed to his agent is being conveyed to Kirill Kaprizov, because Kaprizov's back in Moscow. It's a different language, and that nothing's lost in translation. If you remember during the contract dispute, and I'm not trying to intimate that this is a, quote, dispute. This isn't a Marco Rossi situation. But if you remember the actual dispute that he was in 4 years ago when he signed his 5-year contract, it got done on the eve of training camp. Why? How? Because Bill Guerin got on a plane, went down to Miami, sat down with Kaprizov face-to-face with his agent, Paul Theophanis, and they were able to iron out the deal, and they had him on a private jet here by the time that the training camp began. Maybe this is just one of those things where, all right, they've done a lot of legwork. Now it's just a matter of sitting down with Kirill and just making sure that he's comfortable. I think where things got a little concerning with some of the fans is we were talking about terms of the contract. Anthony, the Wild continue to want to sign him to an 8-year contract. I'm starting to wonder if he is willing to sign on the dotted line, and we're just assuming again that he is willing to sign on the dotted line, if he's not going to want 8 years, if he's going to want 3, 4, 5 years as an extension, with the cap going up, to make sure he doesn't also lock himself into an undervalued contract. But then the other thing is, Anthony, is like, look, the Wild at some point have to prove to him that he can win a cup here. And if he signs 8 years away of his career, he's saying, I'm going to be here for the interim no matter what. Where if you do a shorter term deal, you're sort of saying to the management, to the ownership, all right, I'm giving 2-3 more years of my life here, but now it's up to you to actually build a contender.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't have any reason to know if that's a part of his deliberation. The money part is legit. The cap is going up. I got to believe almost any player in that spot would be looking, saying, right now, this would be the max I could get. But 2 years from now, when the cap is $10 million higher, any player in my spot could get more. You take on some risk with that. The other thing is that the 8 years, the max in a couple of years is going to be 7. So if you sign a 3 or 4 year deal now, the deal after that's going to be 7 years. I don't know. You just start to add up the numbers and say, I mean, what do you think his number is at 8 years right now?
Probably 15 or 16.
15 or 16. So you're like 128 would be the high side if it was 16.
120 if it's 15.
120 if it's 15. Well, think about that on a 7-year deal. Now you have to be almost 19 to match that total value. So is there going to be and
remember, he can only sign 6 years.
6 years with another team. That's
Yeah.
what I was just going to say. So for 6 years on another team, it's got to be $22 million a year
Yeah.
to get to that number, 21. So it still seems like this is the best spot, and it takes away all the risk of injury, takes away all the risk of anything that would diminish his value. And it isn't like a team is lowballing him. It isn't like somebody's saying, hey, sign a 4-year, $8 million deal. His life is set when he signs. I mean, it might already be set, but his life is set to a level that beyond what any player needs whenever he signs this deal. And it's not to say that guys shouldn't get as much as they can, but this isn't a spot where the team's trying to lowball him. The team's going to give him what he's worth. And what's the difference? So if you sign 8 years now, yes, the next contract, you're at the end of your career and maybe you can't get quite as much. Sign 3 or 4 years, you got one more big contract, but it's going to be a 7-year deal. Then what's after that? Mm-hmm. Maybe nothing, or a couple small deals at best. So I don't know what the math would tell you. I really don't think there's that big a difference in the math if you start to extrapolate it out to what's realistic that could happen.
I just think the fact that it's not done now yet is probably that this has nothing to do with math and money. He's going to get paid whether it's here or somewhere else. The Wild, we know, is willing to give him the moon. So the question is, does stuff need to be conveyed to him to convince him that it's worth devoting more of his career here when he's also at an age where this contract kicks in, it's 29, he wants to win. So I guess my question is to you, what happens if the worst case scenario happens and he sits down with Bill and says to him, I'm not ready to sign.
No extension. I'm going to play out the year.
Yeah.
Well, that's the worst case scenario.
That is the worst case scenario. I mean, if you're Bill, I think it is incumbent on you, and I know fans don't want to hear this, to get a couple teams that he's willing to go to and then maybe try to work out a trade at some point this season. And the reason why I say this is that now, because he has that full no move clause, Kirill really does wield all the power here. And we see how brutal it was when the Wild lost Marian Gaborik for nothing. We saw the way Mitch Marner wielded his power and refused to waive his no move to go to Carolina at the deadline and another place at the deadline. And they essentially were going to lose him for nothing until suddenly they had to make a trade out when there were rumors of potential tampering charges that could be happening. Suddenly they were able to work out a trade for the rights. Not a lot, but there will come a point where the longer this goes, that becomes a topic. And I guess my biggest fear is the distraction level if they go into the season and it's not done.
Well, I agree with that.
Because that's the type of thing that can really hurt a season.
Well, it can hurt a season, can hurt a team, can hurt everything. And I do think, I don't think it's a stretch to say that if you don't have an extension done, you absolutely have to start entertaining the possibility of trading. You can't get to the end of this next season with Kirill and just let the contract expire.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, you have to either get him extended or get something for him. I don't think we're anywhere close to starting to field offers for Kirill Kaprizov yet. But if you got into the season without an extension done,
it's going to be a constant talking point.
And I think you'd have to go to the player then and say, all right, well, if you don't want to be here, where would you like to go? And we'll try to make a trade.
Now, again, this is just, we're just talking completely hypothetically. We have no reason to believe that is the case. But as optimistic and as confident as Bill Guerin was throughout, from not even after the season, before the season, I mean, he went on the Fan with Dan Barreiro and said, 10 out of 10 that he was going to be able to re-sign him. So, the fact this isn't done and we're at July 22nd, 23rd, it just leads you to believe that, all right, what else is going on here? And is this going to become an issue? Now, let's just say that he is willing to sign. That changes everything. It puts the Wild in a position where I think that becomes a sellable commodity to other players, that they have this building block here that's going to be able to, as we know, perform on an unbelievably star level and in the playoffs. He was one of their best players in the postseason against Vegas. So we'll see what I can tell you the Wild are still confident that he's going to sign. But there just might come a point now where they've got to wait for him to get back in the country, sit down with him, and try to get it done. But right now, they are definitely taking a break. When we come back, we'll talk about Marco Rossi for the 50,000th time on the podcast, and we'll go to your Twitter questions. Maybe Vinny has some thoughts. Anthony and I are going to do some somersaults. I don't even know what we're going to
Somersaults would be good on an audio podcast.
Yeah, I know.
Cartwheels.
Yeah, we're going to have to make up some stuff here.
Johnny'd be happy if we mixed in a lame duck turn. It is her birthday.
So nice.
Could mix in, I think it was a lame duck turn was one of her dance moves.
Yeah. Was that what it is, Margo? All right. We'll be back here on the fan. Not the fan. Or in this, what are we on? Talk North. Talk North, worst seats in the house. We'll be back. Do you have flickering lights or leaky toilets? Well, that's not how summer's supposed to go. From runaway toilets and lukewarm water heaters to full home generator installs, Aquarius has your back. Right now, take $98 off any plumbing or electrical repair from Aquarius. That's $98 off any plumbing or electrical repair from Aquarius. That's right. Aquarius isn't just your heating and cooling experts. They don't just do water softeners. They don't put in just the Kinetico water osmosis systems that's under my sink and makes my water taste incredible. They do plumbing and electrical repair as well. They have friendly pros, fast service, and solutions to keep your home humming. Right now, visit AquariusHomeservices.com to book your service now. That's AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended. And don't forget to mention that Russo sent you.
Deer hunting season is here, and it's time to own your odds with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. With the Hunt app, you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, tracks, and much more, all at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt. That's onxmaps.com/hunt to sign up today.
It's time for change. Experience better banking at Royal Credit Union and put your financial goals in motion with helpful tools and personal support. Get started at rcu.org/time. Insured by NCUA.
All right, back here, worst seats in the house. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta.
Better text somebody and tell them to edit out your toss to break.
We'll see if Alex wants to. All right. July 28th, Tuttle's is our next live show, 7 p.m. August 13th, also at Elsie's. Maybe we'll have some news by then. All right, let's talk about Marco Rossi. Literally nothing has changed. They've completely, as we said on the last number of podcasts, haven't been talking. And I think at this point, it was a game of chicken. All right. Bill Guerin's saying, all right, offer sheet eligible. Let's see. And so far at this point, July 23rd has not happened. So now there's really no pressure points, right? The pressure points training camp. So if you're Bill Guerin, really, is it even worth trying to?
No, the longer it goes now, the better for Billy.
Yeah, you would think.
Look, if somebody,
because he's got no rights,
right? If somebody was out there that was willing to give you what you keep asking me to give you, you'd have signed it. And I just can't imagine a scenario where Marco Rossi's not on the ice with the Wild first day of training camp.
Right.
I don't see any way that could happen.
The question is, when does the contract get done? Like, there's nothing worse than a European signing the day before camp, because then they can't get their visa. We saw that with Fiala when he had his contract dispute with Billy. All of a sudden we didn't see him for like a week into camp, and it really hurt his beginning of the season.
I got a feeling that Marco doesn't seem to be that kind of guy. He seems to be 100% speculation. He seems to be the type of guy that would go to his agent and say, look, we tried to get but I got to be there before camp. I got to be there a week before camp, 2 weeks before camp, whatever it is. Get it done. Just get the best deal you can get done and let's go. And we've talked throughout the late part of the season and all off season. And I know you've talked a lot about the fact that you were pretty confident he wasn't going to be a part of the Wild. And this is one of the reasons why I've felt all along like I don't think it's a done deal, that even if the team wanted to trade him, you have to find a trading partner. Even if the whole offer sheet thing, I just didn't see teams out there that were likely to give him an offer sheet that was beyond what the Wild were offering him. And that's why I've kind of felt all along like it was likely he was going to end up right back where he started, which was with the Wild. And hopefully it's on a deal that both sides are okay with. And for him, to me, if I were him, it would be take the 5x5 kind of deal and prove the Wild wrong. It's not like it's a 1 year, just here. It's 5 years, $5 million. You're still in a spot where you've got a terrific contract and a terrific life for the rest of your life. Now go prove them wrong, and at the end of that contract, go make your money.
Yeah, when you're going to become a UFA, all that
and
stuff
still
is,
young. I mean, a
I don't think
a
that's,
5x5 deal is he's still what, 28 at that time, 29.
Yeah. I will say that in today's NHL, 5x5 is probably undervalued for him.
Maybe, but let's even say it's 5x6,
right.
Whatever. I mean, it's not. I'm just saying it's not. You're not that far away where you're. I should be getting 7.5 or $8 million per. That's different.
What to me is fascinating is from the organization standpoint, everything they say makes sense, right? They don't want to give him more than Matt Boldy because he's not a better player than Matt Boldy. They don't want to give him. They offered him what in their mind is a perfect comparable with guys like Dylan Strome and Anton Lundell. One that's won 2 cups, are really quality NHL players. But from Marco's standpoint, everything's statistic based in the way that contracts are done now. And when Matthew Coronado is making 6.5, and you see all the guys signing for 7, the comparables say that that's what your number is. The difference here, and we've been saying this a long time. Look, like Billy's narrative lately is everybody thinks that I don't like the guy. I like the guy. Yeah, to a point. I think what it comes down to, though, is that if the Wild feel that overall in the 2-hole that they cannot win a cup with Marco Rossi as their second line center, that's why they don't want to commit to him the long-term dollars at a $7 million price or something like that.
And I'm not saying that I'd give him $7 million per right now in his career, but I think a 5x6 kind of deal is good for both sides, and then let Marco prove it.
Yeah.
And if he proves that he is a legit number 2 center, at the end of that contract, somebody's going to pay him $8 or $9 million.
I think at the end of the day now, when they eventually come to some sort of compromise, it's going to wind up being that 2-year deal, and Marco's just going to have to suck it up that it's in his mind undervalued and that it puts him at risk of being traded, and it would, because the 2-year deal at 5 or something is going to be a very tradable contract. And I think that we know by now the Wild don't want to commit to him longer term, so it just essentially buys the Wild more time to make a move and analyze somebody like Danilo Urov to see, all right, is he going to be a stud in this league, or is Marco actually the better player? You know, right now, Danilo is, as I've been saying, is still a rumor. We don't know what he is. We're assuming he's going to be great. But Marco is the known quantity, and we know that he's a guy that can score at a minimum 25 goals in the league and at a minimum 60 points in the league.
And if you start to, as we talked about, what were the potential trade targets or trade packages that might be worthy of Marco in a trade, as soon as you start talking about, well, let's see if we can get a pick for him or a prospect, you're hoping that pick or that prospect turns out to be what Marco already is.
Yeah.
A guy that at this point in his career has scored 40 points, then 60 points in 2 years. That just isn't a given when you start to talk about guys, for sure not with future draft picks, but even guys that let's say were first round picks in the last 2 or 3 years. They're not at that point yet. There's a lot of them. A lot of the guys that you're talking about is what could a package look like with this team or that team. Most of the time you're talking about a prospect that you'd be hoping turns out to be the player that Marco is already.
Yep. Marco just continues. I was watching videos today of Liam Ogren working out in Sweden, and man, is he just an absolute chiseled specimen right now. Marco, same thing in Austria. Like his videos, he just climbed. I was talking to somebody that's buddies with him. He just climbed a mountain the other day in the Alps. Took 10.5 hours going up. Like he is ready. He is coming. And that to your point is why I don't think he's going to risk not being like he is ready to put on a show.
And
this
he
year.
also knows the value of I don't want to piss all my teammates off.
Right.
So I don't want to show up a week late for camp and have all of them looking at me like, where have you been? We're ready to go to work. Where are you? But I do think it's interesting, both of those guys and Ogren, neither one of them have ever had their work ethic doubted. But I think when you look at both of them and you say, this is an indication of the type of young up and coming players that the Wild have in their organization, is guys that are looking at it saying, it's on me to prove that I'm different than the guys above me. It's on me to outplay that veteran guy. And if part of that is me coming into camp in a spot where I am absolutely physically and mentally as prepared as I possibly can be.
And it's not just those two. To your point, I was talking to John Blum, the former Wild defenseman, the other day, and he works out with Zeev Boyum out in California. He still plays professional hockey in Europe, has had an incredible, outstanding European career since he left the NHL. And he works out with Zeev in Southern California and says he's an absolute monster right now and is putting on muscle and things like that. And Zeev is going to be coming back to spend a lot of his second half of his summer here in Minnesota. Same thing with David Juracek. And as I've mentioned for a while, Danilo Yurov's going to be in Connecticut or is in Connecticut working out. So these guys are putting in the work in a 24/7 type of mentality right now. I wanted to ask you about Philip Gustavsson. One thing that has gone under the radar this summer is if the Wild would try to sign him to an extension. It is really interesting how the goaltender prices are starting to go up. Like, if Philip has a big year, you might want to get ahead of this because it's not going to be cheaper. Like Lucas Dostal just signed the other day for $6.5 million. And I'm not, I don't know. You might have a better feeling on who's the better goaltender between those two. But the point is that goalies are getting $5.5, $6 million, and that might be too much for the Wild to want to do until they really analyze Wallstedt. What number in your mind is too much for Philip Gustavsson? And would you, if you're Bill Guerin, try to get ahead of this now?
Well, I'd answer the second part of your question first, which is I think I would be inclined to try to move earlier or sooner rather than later. He convinced me a little bit last year. I had my doubts going into last season. You and I have talked about him a lot throughout his career, and I always wondered about whether or not he was ready to be the go-to guy when everybody knew he was the go-to guy. A lot different to come in and even play every night when the pressure is minimized as much as NHL pressure can be minimized. But I think right now, I don't know what the number would be. I think it would be a little bit less than what you just mentioned with Dostal per year. I think, to me, goaltenders are tough to really lock in long-term for much more than that. Mm-hmm. There's so much unknown, and a lot can change. I'm not sure how much of it has to do with Wallstedt, but if it were me, I'd love to lock Gus up for the next 3, 4, 5 years, perhaps. But if it was at a number a little bit less than that.
Yeah. And
I don't know if that would be enough to get it done.
Yeah. And he's got a great agent too. So we'll see where it goes. I'm going to be sitting down with Gus in Milan in a couple weeks, and I'll be interested to see his thoughts, because remember the last time I sat down with him, it was in Stockholm before a season. It was right after he got that contract, and it just felt like we know what happened that season. It felt like maybe he didn't work nearly as hard in the offseason and learned his lesson, obviously, going into last season. Does he already learn that now? Does he feel like he still has something to earn? If he knows that the contract negotiations are going on for an extension, is that playing his mind? Just getting his thoughts, I think, will be really interesting. Wallstedt, though, I truly, and obviously, again, this is just a theory, I think he's just going to be such a better player in the NHL than he would be in the AHL. I mean, you're playing behind Jared Spurgeon and Jonas Brodin in the NHL.
He went down there with such a disappointing start,
right?
Where he thought he was going to be in the NHL more often than not over the course of the year, and all of a sudden, circumstances beyond his control sent him down there, and he struggled right away. And goaltenders have to be mentally tough. And he probably learned some lessons with that. But you can see how it quickly unraveled, the way his season unraveled last year, that I think if all of a sudden he's just a backup in the NHL to start the year, one bad outing isn't going to send him into mental, I don't know what you call it, mental vapor lock, whatever. I just think he'd be in a spot where, okay, it was just a bad night, I'll be ready next time, as opposed to, holy cow, I'm in Iowa. And now I gave up. Will I ever get back to the NHL? I think that seemed to snowball for him. last year.
I completely agree with you. And he admitted that when he got up here. But when he came up, he looked good. And I just there's a reason why they drafted him as high as he is. There's a reason why so many people around the league still think so highly of his talent level. And now it's as Philip Gustavsson often says, a lot of it's between the ears. And I just think it's going to be, to your point, just a sigh of relief in training camp when he knows he is on this team. And again, you're not playing. It'll be the first time in his life where he's not the everyday guy. But it's just such a different thing when you're playing behind a blue line like these guys, or a structure like this in the NHL, compared to sort of the helter-skelter nature at times in the AHL. So we'll see. I mean, there's so many times that we see guys go to the minors and they wind up in the NHL better players. It's just something that happens. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, maybe we'll have some thoughts from Vinny. We'll go through some X questions as well. We'll be right back on Worst Seats in the House.
And I want to tell you about Twill in the Edina Galleria. Scott Dayton's Twill in the Edina Galleria. TwillMN.com is the website. I'm wearing my Johnny O hat. I'm wearing one of my many Peter Millar shirts. Johnny O and Peter Millar are two of my favorite brands out of Twill in the Edina Galleria. When I've been going to Wolves games lately, I've been wearing my Dingman shoes. I've been wearing my Brax pants, my either Peter Millar or Johnny O shirts, pullovers. The Wolves games are weird because they're really cold, and then they turn on the fire jets before the game and singe your eyebrows. You need to be prepared for all kinds of different temperatures in that building. And I just use all my Twill stuff. And as we do more shows here at TalkNorth.com on video, I'll be wearing more Twill stuff because it's really simple. I don't always try to look good. Sometimes I'm very happy being a slob, and I wear old sweats and T-shirts. If I'm trying to look presentable in any way, Talk North meetings, sponsor meetings, big games, going out in public, going out to dinner, I just put on something I bought at Twill. It's just that simple. If I put on something I bought at Twill, I'm going to look good. I'm playing a Randy Shaver's golf tournament on Monday. I'm going to wear Twill stuff to that too. Golf, walk around town, dinner, whatever. TwillMN.com. Go to Twill in the Edina Galleria. They're laid back. They love talking sports. They're nice people. Tell them we sent you. You'll have a good time, and you'll end up walking out with something great.
If you're looking for a refreshing THC drink, well, check out Giggly. It tastes like your favorite cocktail with no aftertaste and just pure, bold flavor. It's made with real fruit juice and all natural ingredients. It's a Minnesota-made gem. You can find it at liquor stores and Quick Trip locations across Minnesota, or get it shipped nationwide. Plus, with a new low pricing and low-calorie options, it's the perfect guilt-free sip. Try Giggly today. Hey, have you been dreaming of a lake cabin lifestyle with boating, fishing, and family fun in northern Minnesota? Well, lately I've thought a lot about how cool it would be to have a getaway like so many Minnesotans. And if you're like me, you probably think that owning your own lakeside getaway is beyond your budget. Well, if you think lake cabin real estate prices keep going up, well, think again. This is Russo, and I'm here to tell you there is an affordable way to enjoy a cabin lifestyle and all that goes with it. And yes, I said affordable. I founded a Clamshell Beach Resort, which is located on the Whitefish chain of 14 lakes for you and your family to enjoy. Here's how. Clamshell has lake homes that offer deeded fractional ownership, and the keywords there are deeded and fractional. You own it. Imagine having 5 weeks a year to enjoy Clamshell with its beaches, pool, and lodge that's full of kids' activities. Is golf your game? There's a great golf course right across the road. Like winter sports? Well, you can go ice fishing, cross-country skiing, or snowmobiling right out the door at Clamshell. And there's no maintenance, no grass mowing, no snow removal. It's done all for you. And you can own a share of Clamshell Beach Resort at an affordable price. To learn more about ownership opportunities at Clamshell Beach Resort, go to cottagesonwhitefish.com or contact Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. That's cottagesonwhitefish.com or Pat Egan at 612-220-9819.
Back here, Worst Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta. July 28th at Tuttle's is our next live show. That is next Monday night, so please come out for that. Incredible food over there. You can watch all the games on the TVs. And, of course, you get to meet Anthony LaPanta, which is a dream for anybody. August 13th, 7 p.m. at Elsie's. So that'll be right before I'm going overseas again. So you want to start with Vinny's thoughts?
Well, we talked to Vinny before the show, and I actually forgot. Did he have a thought? I thought his thought was
his thoughts were agreeing with us that there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah. Right. But he talked about potentially revisiting some stuff that we had predicted that we shoved that aside. And I thought he had one other one that he threw out, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, I do not know.
You were here when the phone conversation was happening.
He wanted us to go through our predictions at the start of last year.
Picks at the beginning of the
and
year,
he said that I won, but I'm like, it would have made more sense if we did this like the first week after the season, not like now. It would be too transparent for everybody that we have nothing to talk about, and nobody knows that right now.
Right, nobody knows.
Nobody knows. So, but
you know what?
He did say that my predictions were much more accurate than yours, which just made my night.
But we don't know what they were. We have to revisit.
But as usual, I was right.
No, he said, I think Russo won, but we'll find him. Vinny was busy judging a talent show at a swimming pool or something like that tonight. So we'll give him a pass for no thoughts on this week's show, and we'll get back after it next week.
Nobody has any thoughts at all about anything right now with the Wild. We desperately need Bill Guerin to do something by the time. Like, we could probably get by on the July 28th show just with all the live fans there.
Of course we'll get
But man,
by.
that first podcast in August, we need something to happen.
Well, by August, we can start looking ahead at the season, projecting lineups, that kind of stuff. Because by then, the roster hopefully will be set.
You know what? We'll go to X questions in a while, but somebody did ask a question. It was the way they framed it. I just thought was funny. Like, what are your expectations of the Wild this year since they did nothing in the offseason to improve? And, the one thing I wanted to say is, we always talk of the Central Division as this juggernaut. Go through every team. Like, is there one team in the Central that made a bunch of moves that you're really excited? Like, I look at Colorado. All they did really was trade Charlie Coyle and re-sign Brock Nelson. They brought in Brent Burns, but Brent Burns' career is we're at the back couple holes. We're at not even the back nine anymore. Winnipeg, they lose Ehlers. They really couldn't get anybody to go there. I mean, they lost Tanev, Jonathan Taves. Gus Nyquist. I
guess we'll see. As
I said on the Daily Faceoff, like Jonathan Taves might look like Gus Nyquist did last year.
He might. We don't know. That actually is one of the more in the entire division. That might be one of the things I'm most interested to watch.
Yeah.
Is he anything like the old Jonathan Taves?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying like MVP type candidate, number one center, but is his game anywhere close to that? Can he be a third line shutdown center?
Yeah.
That legitimately can shut down good players.
Right.
I have no idea.
Dallas
didn't do anything to get better.
Traded Dumba, traded Marchment, lost Granlund, gave Duchesne, in my eyes, an absurd deal. They have still not added that right shot D. So those are your three top teams in division. I
just think when you look at the Central, it was a juggernaut last year. It was by far top to bottom, maybe the toughest division in the NHL. But I don't think anybody was in a position to get better in the offseason, not significantly better. And a couple of teams probably got a little bit worse. So I think it'll be a highly competitive division, but I don't think anymore. For about 10 years, we've looked at it and said, more often than not, the Central's going to put 5 in the playoffs, the Pacific's going to put 3. And this year, I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I'd say and it wasn't last year. It was 4-4. But I think you've got a spot where it's. I don't know that the Central's as dominant as it was. I think it's really balanced.
A lot will depend on what happens with St. Louis and Utah. Like Utah, obviously, they add Peterka, they add Nate Schmidt. I do think that they're probably actually not done. I think they have one other thing that might be up their sleeves. But they were on the rise last year. They're going to be good. And St. Louis, Robert Thomas was on a 126-point pace at the end of the season. Kyrou scored 12 goals in the last month of the season. They had Pius Suter. So I think that's it.
Yeah, I agree. And there were 5 in the Central that made the playoffs last year, but I think next year would be likely to be more of a 4-4 type thing. But I just think it's a really balanced division.
Yeah.
I think St. Louis will be better, Nashville will be better, Utah will be better, Chicago will be better, but still not ready to contend. And the teams at the top didn't really do anything to get significantly better. In fact, I think Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado all might be just a half a notch down from where they were a year ago.
The concerns with the Wild is they do have a really tough schedule, especially at the start of the season and at the end. They end the season with 8-11 on the road. They have 14 sets of back-to-back, with just second most in the league. They're on
Winnipeg
the road.
Probably has 6.
Right.
Like it's normal. I didn't look at their schedule.
But yeah, I mean, like it's really, their schedule's difficult. Is this Rossi situation resolved, or is it a distraction? Is this Kaprizov situation resolved, or is it a distraction? How long is Brodin out? When he comes back, is he Jonas Brodin, or does missing camp hurt him? Do the kids not exceed your expectations, but live up to the expectations? Because they're going to have up to potentially 5 rookies on the opening night roster with Wallstedt, Urov, Boyum, Juracek, and Ogren. So that's where it comes down to. But, does Tarasenko, does he find the fountain of youth? Does Nico Sturm look like a guy that could be a really solid fourth-line player? That's what's going to decide.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Sturm wasn't. I think Tarasenko's a less certain gamble for sure. Have you looked at other teams that hosted the World Juniors and had to go on the road for 10 games at that point?
Ottawa last year had a 9-game trip.
Right. But have you looked at other teams to see like how it affected them, like how they did on that trip, but also did they then run out of gas down the stretch? I really haven't gone back and ever looked.
Yeah, it's hard to think because like the Montreal recently, we got to look at Edmonton, Calgary, but there really aren't a lot of examples of teams that were like supposed to be like juggernauts.
And teams forced to half the time it's in Europe, and the other half it's in Canada.
And the Wild have
US
the 7-game. The Wild have a 7-game trip, but it's a very manageable trip. There's only one back-to-back in it. It starts in Winnipeg, goes to Vegas, but then it goes out to San Jose, Anaheim, back-to-back games, but with a day off in LA, and then up to Seattle. It's not like this treacherous road swing either. I mean, we're talking about almost no travel. Which I, by the way, think is a great trip for the average fan to go on. All right, let's go to some Twitter questions. Jeff Merrick is convinced Sid, who we learned somebody in this house has a Sidney Crosby burner account today. Not you.
Sidney Rice.
Oh, Sidney Rice? Okay. Sid the Kid Right? I got it now. All right. Yep. Jeff Merrick is convinced Sid will want to play for a contender after the Olympics. Any chance his relationship with Billy Guerin and Marc-Andre Fleury bring him to Minnesota if he wants to leave? Jeff Merrick said contender. Sorry, that was opened up. That was just low-hanging fruit to hit out of the ballpark.
I don't know.
If he goes anywhere, it's going to be Colorado to play with McKinnon or Montreal, where his dad was drafted. He's not coming to Minnesota after his career in Pittsburgh. Anyway. All right. PJ asks, could you bring an update on where some of our younger players are training this summer? For example, anyone in town working with Andy Ness or Atria? So, Andy, I saw the other day some pictures that Andy's working with a lot of NHL players, a couple Wild players there, but none of the young kids. They're going to be trickling into town, I think, starting now. Guys like Boyum and Juracek are supposed to be here. I think Ryder Ritchie's coming in for the World Junior Summer Showcase coming up at the end of the month. It started session Sunday at Ritter's, and you can get your tickets online. That's a great way to get an appetizer for the World Junior Championship. But a lot of those young kids, you're off in Connecticut working out, so that's sort of the list. Question for Mr. Panther. Got a golf outing coming up besides Loggers. Where's another or a couple favorite courses around the metro-ish area? This is from John. And apparently your son at one point told him White Eagle. So
I do like White Eagle. In fact, I played there today.
I love that Vinny's going through all our questions and answers.
Well, that's why he didn't have any thoughts. He had already answered them all. I like on the eastern end of town, I think there's some great courses. I think Loggers Trail is still, in my opinion, bang for the buck, as good a course as you'll find. Great layout, great challenge, and great shape. White Eagle's a good one. I think it's a little tougher. I like Keller a lot in St. Paul. It's a good public course. Keep the greens in great shape. It's a little bit more nondescript, I'd say, than Loggers Trail. So it's a course that you'd really have a hard time losing balls there, but it is mildly challenging, and the greens are great. And Stone Ridge to me is still one of my favorite courses. It's semi-private now, so it's a little more expensive, but if you're on that end of town, on the eastern end of town, I love Stone Ridge.
Will asks, who is the chirper between you and Anthony? I'd say you're a good chirper.
Chirper?
Yeah, like I guess from hockey standpoint, like
yeah,
you definitely chirp a lot of people.
Like who?
In our media party, you chirp everybody. I just am the angry chirper. You are the one that
I like to get people riled up from time to time for sure, but I don't know that it's. I don't know. I like to chirp Ken Cutler on our trips.
Yes, exactly. You do. Your birthday's coming up. You have any big plans coming up?
Yeah, actually, I have a fun weekend planned. I'm playing golf again on I'm playing golf tomorrow and Thursday, and
tomorrow and Thursday morning.
Right, Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday's with my family. Back end of a tournament on Thursday. Then I'm heading up to McGregor to Big Sandy. Should be a fun weekend. The 6 guys that lived together 35 years ago are all getting together for a weekend, which will be a lot of fun. Just the guys. We lived in a place called The House at St. John's. It's no longer there anymore. All the houses up there have names. We visited a couple of them. I think when we were there, we went to Sal's West, the Yellow House, Green Acres.
Yeah, like one day we walked into one house and like the door came off, right?
It did.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're great houses, but they all have names.
And then there was the one house where Margot at like 4 a.m. called me and said, "Are you with my husband?" Because you weren't picking up. And I was just miserable sitting on a couch at a frat party.
It wasn't
the only one sober.
There aren't frats. It wasn't a frat house. We were at Green Acres, which is one of the houses up there.
Yeah.
We were playing darts.
Yes. Everybody was drunk except me. And I was a designated driver.
It's one of my favorite. The hosts were so excited that we had come over there after the bars to play darts and drink beers at their house. And they had a keg or a mini keg, but had run out of cups. So one of the guys brought me 3/4 of a cup, measuring cup, full of beer.
What was that awful rum everybody was drinking? It was like Parrot or something.
That's exactly. I can't remember what it was, but it was bad.
Remember me on the couch and there was a St. John's hockey player that so I'm at the end of the couch. He started off by sitting on the leg of the couch telling me his life story as a hockey player. Yeah. And next thing I know, he's essentially sitting on my lap. And I said to one of AJ's buddies, Kirk, I called him over and I'm like, you need to get this kid off of me right now. Like out of here. So hopefully that kid's not listening to this
Chad Graff will listen to this podcast. Yeah. The night didn't end well for him.
No.
But it was...
let's put it this way. We stopped off. What's the city on the way back? It wasn't Alexandria, was it?
No.
I think
we stopped twice. We stopped in Monticello.
We stopped at like a mobile because Anthony had to go get some cleaning products for his car.
Yeah, and then we stopped again in like Rogers area. But
the funniest part of that trip is you had to do a baseball game the next day.
I did.
And so at like 4:30 in the morning, as I'm driving us back, you have your laptop out building your charts for the game. I was like,
there actually is a great story to the end of that, because after I dropped you and Chad off in Minneapolis and I drove home and walked into the kitchen, let's say it was 7 a.m. and my 2 daughters were getting ready to go to school when I walked in, and my youngest, Ariana, turns to me and said, "Dad, why are you up so early?" And Gianni turns to her and said, "Ariana, he's just getting home from last night." Which was, it's like, yeah, that's right. I'm going to go upstairs and go to bed. You guys have a good day at school.
Yeah.
But anyway, we lived in a house up there called The House, which has since been sold and plowed over and is now a Quick Trip. But these guys all live together, and for us to all get together and hang out for a weekend should be a lot of fun. It really, when you really think about the fact that it was 35 years ago that we all lived together, is
So
amazing.
the house is now a Quick Trip.
Yeah,
so
was,
it's probably the Quick Trip that we stopped at to get Chad that jug of water.
It is. So that used to be a bowling alley called the El Paso Club, and our house was in the backyard of the El Paso Club. It was owned by the guy who owned the El Paso Club, and it was maybe, I don't know, within 6 or 8 years of the time, well, a little bit longer than that. I think it stayed for maybe 10 or 12 because I happened to run into people that lived there later. Hey, didn't you live in the house? I lived in the house, yes. And so people always at Johnny's and Benny's will know this when they hear the story because they all, well, when you went there, as soon as the first question they ask is, well, where'd you live? And people will always, oh, I lived in the Depot, or I lived in the White House, or I lived in the Yellow House, or whatever it might be. And so the house is no longer, it was sold and is now a Quick Trip. And yes, that was the Quick Trip where we bought water.
A couple questions from Austin. Do you think Kirill can replicate the same season and follow it up with winning the Hart Trophy next season? And what do you think would be the ideal defense partner for Zeev Buium?
Well, the first part, I think it's entirely possible. I mean, it's hard to ever say, yes, I think the guy's going to win the Hart. I mean, that's almost impossible to predict that, to pick one guy to do it. But where he was at the halfway point when he got hurt, he certainly was in the conversation, if not the favorite at that point. I think he can duplicate what he did points-wise. I think if he stays healthy, 110, 115 points is entirely possible for Kirill.
Zeev, with Brodin expected to miss at least the start of the season, it'll be interesting. I would think that Zeev's going to be with Spurgeon and that Middleton will be with Faber, but it's going to be one of those two. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think he's got to prove that he's capable and ready to play in the top 4. And
I'm just saying, until Broads gets back.
Right. But that's what I mean. So you got to prove you're in the top 4 because otherwise you've got options with more veteran guys that are in your bottom pair that you could bump up there. We'll see. I think they'll give him every opportunity to prove he's ready for that.
By the way, I just found that question. It was Ice Wild 29 who says, do you see the Wild making the playoffs this season given the team hasn't improved much? Lucas, a couple more and we'll wrap up the show. Lucas Lawrence asks, is this a make-or-break season for Jakub Trenyan? They love what he could do in the playoffs, but you can't just coast through 82 games to get there. Well, I mean, he's got 3 years left on his deal, but yeah, I mean, I think he's got to be better. He showed us how good he can be. He will probably start on the 4th line, so that just limits your ice time a bit.
Right.
But he's got to be better on the PK.
He does, but I wouldn't say that the guy coasted through the season. I just think it took him a while to adjust and fit in. Because I think we saw it even as the season progressed. It wasn't just the playoffs. He got better as the year progressed. I think he has to be better. I think he'd be the first guy to tell you. I know that John Hines and Bill Guerin would say he's got to bring more during the regular season. But to say coasted through it makes it almost sound like it was a lack of interest, lack of effort. I don't think that was the case. I think he just was a guy that needed some time to adjust.
This would be a good topic for one of our upcoming shows. Carson says this might require a bit of research, but in honor of the 25th anniversary season, what does each year all-time Wild teams look like? Here's the deal. We'll do that in early August, our first show in August. I think that's a great topic, especially if Marco Rossi and Kirill Kaprizov, there's no news there. I will tell you that if you are not an Athletic subscriber, now's the time to get in because Joe Smith and I actually had a meeting today where we are going to do a 25th anniversary team, so to speak, but we're going to let the fans choose based on by voting starting early August, essentially in a Google voting form. I don't know what you call that, Google form. But we'll allow you to, we're going to give you, say, 25 left wings, 25 centers, 25 right wings, 25 D, 25 goalies, or not 25 goalies.
Didn't
but
the NHL just do this?
Yeah, they did
year?
that. Actually, I was on the committee. Yeah, I was on the committee too. But we're going to do one where you can pick 12 forwards, 60. But then we're also going to have sort of a panel of LaPantas and breaking news if you're listening, Wes Walses and Darby Hendricksons and Brunos and people that are around the organization for a long time, have them pick their team. Their team might look very different. Where the way we're going to do it with the fans is that the top voters are, we might have Zach Parise as your 4th line left wing, where maybe Wes Walls might have a Derek Bugard because he's going to be able to almost in a single way do it. So we'll be doing that coming up with also a bunch of different stories on biggest moments. So we'll be doing a lot of stuff on the 25th anniversary coming up with the Wild. And the Wild around the State Fair is expected to announce their plans, which is going to include a jersey that they can wear, a special jersey with a special patch. I'm sure they're going to have logos on the ice. They're going to bring alumni back throughout the course of the season, so it'll be pretty neat. You excited for the 25th anniversary of the Wild, Anthony?
Yeah, well, I'm excited for the season. I mean, this is the point of the year where you start to get anxious. Like, I can't wait. I just want to get back to work. Can't wait for the season to start. And I'm excited about this year with this team. And we talked earlier about the division. I'm excited about what the Central Division race is going to look like. I think it's going to be a 5-6 team deep battle.
Winningest, most successful team making the playoffs in your tenure with in the broadcast, right? Because your first year was their first year of
the Parisi Shooter
yeah,
thing.
So
yeah,
they've made the playoffs 10 of the 12 years with you at the helm.
11 of 13. No, now is it 12 of 14 now? I think it's either 11
this
or 13.
14th coming up.
This will be my 14th season coming up. So it's 11 out of 13 they've made the playoffs.
Yeah. So there you go. All right. Thanks to our awesome sponsors. Again, July 28th is our next live show at Tuttle's at 7 p.m. and then August 13th at Elsie's at 7 p.m. So definitely come on out to those. It's going to be a blast. We always have fun at those shows. You can eat dinner, grab some drinks, talk some hockey with Anthony and myself. Thanks to our sponsors, Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems. And this is the Aquarius Home Services studio. Clamshell Beach Resorts, Giggly THC Beverages, Onyx Maps, Twill in the Edina Galleria, and Royal Credit Union. Talk to you next week, everybody.
So much coming out, there's nothing